Okay, so today we're diving into something a little different. I've been scrolling through Reddit, and honestly, there are some wild paranormal stories out there. So I thought, why not react to a few of them with you guys? Some of these sound like straight up horror movie scenes, and some of them feel way too real. So let's see what's actually going on. I'm not saying I believe in ghosts or whatever, but sometimes you read a story and you're like, okay, nah, that's not normal. And of course, it's Reddit, so people don't hold back. They share the creepiest stuff ever. So grab your headphones, turn the lights down if you want the full effect, and let's go through some of the top paranormal posts I found. While I'm reacting, tell me in the comments if you think these stories are real or if people are just trying to farm up upvotes. Some of these will definitely make you question things around you. If you've ever had something weird happen in your house or you've seen something you can't explain, you're going to relate to some of this. All right, let's jump into the first story and see how crazy this gets. And if you guys want a part 2 where we go even deeper into Reddit rabbit holes, just let me know. Let's begin. Okay, so the first story I want to share comes from someone who had a super weird experience back in high school. Prom night of all times. Now, this isn't your typical ghost story or anything like that. This one's more like reality itself glitched. And honestly, it's kind of terrifying.
Currently in my mid 30s, but this experience happened when I was in high school, and I still think about it from time to time. It was prom night, and my date at the time wanted to play elevator tag. I'm still not entirely sure what the purpose of it was, but essentially, one person goes into one elevator while the other person goes into a second elevator, and you're supposed to click buttons for random floors and ride the elevator until you both end up catching each other on the same floor. Sounded just as stupid then as it does now, but he seemed really intent on playing the game, so I went along with it. In this particular venue, there were two sets of elevators, both directly across from each other on every floor. The buttons were G, assumedly for ground, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I stood there in the elevator, alone, clicking away and getting bored, and decided to click G to get back to the main level so I could rejoin the party. However, when the doors opened, I was greeted with pitch black darkness, like staring into a void. The light from the elevator didn't even illuminate anything in front of me, not even the floor. It was just utter and complete darkness, like if I had stepped out of the elevator, I would have fallen into an abyss. I tried to click buttons to get to an upper level, but the doors wouldn't close, and the absolute strangest, horrific feeling came over me. I panicked, obviously, before trying the close doors button. It was then that the doors did indeed close, and I was able to move back to an upper level. I must have looked completely disheveled once I got back to floor 1, because one of the staff members asked if I was okay. I told them that I had just scared myself by accidentally hitting the button for the ground floor and going to the basement. She looked at me funny and said, "We don't have a basement. The ground level just takes you to the lobby." Even weirder, when I found my date, he asked me where I had been and said I was missing for about 30 to 45 minutes, when the whole debacle to me felt like it lasted 5 minutes.
Okay, so here's the thing about this elevator story. On one hand, maybe it was a mechanical or technical glitch, like the elevator system got confused or there was a wiring issue that somehow delayed the doors or made the lights go out. Elevators are complicated machines, so weird things can happen. On the other hand, it could be something psychological. She was on prom night, excited, a little nervous. The human brain can trick itself into seeing or feeling things, especially in semi-dark environments. Maybe she thought the floor opened into a void, but it was just shadows and disorientation, making it feel endless. Then there's the missing time part. She thought only 5 minutes passed, but her date said it was 30 to 45. That's harder to explain with logic. It could be that she was extremely focused and lost track of time, or there might have been some technical delay in the elevator system that she wasn't aware of. And finally, maybe it's something paranormal. I mean, complete darkness, the feeling of an empty void, missing time, it's exactly the kind of story that doesn't have a clear explanation. Whatever it was, it left her completely freaked out, and I can see why. Honestly, I'd never step out of that elevator myself. All right, so the next story is something that happened to a 17-year-old who was home alone at 4 a.m. Now, being home alone is something most of us have done, but what happened here, well, it's the kind of thing that makes your skin crawl.
It's 4 a.m. here right now. I'm 17 years old, and I'm home alone because my mom and my younger brother went to stay at my aunt's. I've never really been afraid of being home alone, but about half an hour ago, I heard someone calling out my name. I was in my room and my door was locked. I just always lock it. Someone knocked on my door and I stood up to open it. I kind of forgot I was home alone. Then I stopped because it hit me that I should have been alone. The knocking continued and my mom's voice calling me. But if mom was back home, I would have heard the front door. And my cat was with me. He was uneasy and nervous. I didn't know what to do and just stood there. The knocking and my mom's voice went on for about 5 minutes and then stopped. After that, I waited a bit, gathered all the courage I had, opened the door, and checked the house. There was no one, no open window or door. I don't know what that was. I'm literally sitting in my room like an idiot with all the lights on. Does anyone have any idea what that might be?
Now, let's think about what could have happened here. First, maybe it was a misheard sound or echo. Houses at night can be weird. Noises can travel or echo in ways that make it sound like someone's calling your name. Second, it could be psychological. Being alone late at night, quiet, maybe a little anxious, your brain can play tricks. We all know how your mind sometimes thinks it hears your name when it hasn't been called. Then there's the cat behavior. Animals sometimes sense things we don't, whether it's unusual sounds, vibrations, or even a subtle human presence outside. That part adds a layer of mystery. And of course, maybe it's something paranormal. A voice calling you when you're completely alone, knocking that stops on its own, and no one ever shows up. That's exactly the kind of thing people report in ghost stories. Honestly, I don't know what it was, but I know it would have freaked me out. All right, moving on. This next story comes from someone who works as a supervisor on new construction builds. Normally, they're used to finding mistakes, leftover tools, or things half done. Nothing really surprises them. But this one day, something happened that really got under their skin.
I'm a supervisor on new builds, so I'm usually the first one in and the last one out. I'm used to finding mistakes, random tools left behind, stuff half done, breakers not flipped, all of it. Nothing really surprises me anymore. But today actually bothered me. I walked this house the electrician supposedly finished yesterday, just doing my normal checklist, fixtures hung, outlets tested, trash picked up, making notes for punch work. I get to one of the back bedrooms and go to inspect the closet. The light in the closet is on. Not weird by itself, but the switch outside the closet doesn't do anything. I flip it a few times, nothing. I think maybe they wired it hot by accident, so I go inside to unscrew the bulb. Except when I touch the bulb, it's not warm at all. Still lit, bright as hell. That's when I'm like, all right, this is weird. So I call the lead electrician and tell him he might need to come back because the closet light is stuck on or something. He goes, that room doesn't have a closet light. We didn't rough one in. There's no wire there. I literally stop and just stare at this thing because I'm looking right at a working light. I walk back inside the closet to take a picture, and it's off. Like completely off. Switch still doesn't work, bulb cold, no buzzing, no flicker, nothing, just a dead fixture. I stood there probably a solid minute just trying to make sense of it because I know what I saw. I don't get freaked out easy, and I'm not the type who jumps to paranormal stuff, but this one really got under my skin. I even went back after lunch just to double check, thinking maybe I imagined it, or maybe another trade was messing with me. Still off, still no power to the switch, still no explanation. I didn't mention it to the builder because it sounds insane and I don't feel like being the ghost house supervisor. But man, something about today just felt wrong. I've been replaying it all day, and I still can't figure out a single logical reason for it happening. If anyone's seen something like this before, I'd actually love to hear it, because I can't shake this one.
Now, what could have caused this? Well, first, maybe it's a technical glitch. Some kind of short circuit, a smart bulb, or a wiring anomaly that made it temporarily light up even without power. Electrical stuff can be weird, and sometimes it surprises even professionals. Second, maybe it was fatigue or perception. Maybe the light flickered just as they were looking, or a reflection tricked their eyes. But the fact that they personally checked multiple times makes this less likely. Then there's the paranormal angle. A light turning on when it shouldn't, no power to the switch, and no physical explanation. That's exactly the type of subtle, impossible phenomenon that people report in haunted buildings. Honestly, reading this, I'm just like, how do you even explain that? Even if it's a technical glitch, it's still super unsettling to see something completely impossible with your own eyes. All right, story number 4 is one of those experiences that really messes with your head because it's not just one person, it's 2 people feeling the same thing at the same time. And honestly, that's what makes it so chilling.
This happened back in 2012, 2013, I think, when I was about 13 years old. I've never talked about it with anyone except for my dad, who was there with me. Years later, I get goosebumps thinking about it, and I'm curious if anyone else has experienced something similar. After visiting a friend's house all day, my dad had come by to pick me up. It was in the evening and it had just gotten dark. My mom was waiting for us to get home so we could all eat dinner. After picking me up, my dad had to drive about 15 minutes on a long, winding, dark road surrounded by nothing but forest. To give some context, we lived on a nearby military base at the time, and this road was attached to the back entrance of the base, which wasn't used very much. However, my dad liked using this entrance because it was closer to our house, and it would have taken us a lot longer to get home if we drove all the way to the main entrance on the other side of the base. My dad picked me up from my friends, and we start driving home. I'm in the passenger seat. We're talking about random things: school, my sister, what mom might have made for dinner. We're driving up the long road, and it is very, very dark. There aren't any other cars on the road. All you can see when you look out the window are the trees and lots of shadows. My dad and I had been talking to each other, but after a couple of minutes, it seemed as if our conversations slowly faded out. I remember sitting there in my seat and feeling cold all of a sudden, which was strange because the heat was on in the car. Gradually, I started to feel a weird sensation on the back of my head, as if I was being watched. I stayed still and silent, keeping my eyes on the road in front of me. I saw my dad out of the corner of my eye doing the same. I figured he was probably just focused on the road and not thinking about anything in particular. The car we were driving in was a minivan with 2 rows of seats behind us. For some weird reason, I began to feel a very strong impulse to not look behind me, and like something was in the very back row of the car, and if I didn't say anything or acknowledge it, there wouldn't be a problem. I think 2 minutes went by, felt like longer, until I saw we were approaching the back gate of the military base with all of its bright lights. We checked in at the gate and drove to our house. We pulled into the driveway, and while the weird feeling of something in the back seat had gone away, what I thought was strange was that neither my dad or I made a move to get out of the car once he parked and turned the car off. We also still hadn't talked in a couple of minutes. Okay, I thought, maybe he's just being slow getting out, but he didn't budge after a couple seconds. I turned and looked at him, wondering what was up, and interestingly, he was already looking at me with a funny expression on his face. "What?" I asked him. He shook his head and kind of gestured towards the back of the van before saying, "When we were driving home, did you feel something weird, like someone was in the back of the car?" I got instant goosebumps and said yes. I told him I had felt it and didn't want to say anything about it while it was happening. I remember he laughed kind of nervously and said he hadn't wanted to say anything either, or even look at the rearview mirror. He said he kept his eyes on the road and didn't look back. I don't know how to explain it, what it was, or why we both felt the same thing at the same time, but that will definitely stick with me forever. Edit. Since some people were asking, this happened outside of Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, USA. The road we were on passes through the Mark Twain National Forest.
Now, what could this be? Well, first, it could be psychological. Long, dark roads, shadows, and the mind starting to notice every little sound or movement can make you feel like something's there. Stress, low light, and imagination can heighten that sensation. Second, maybe it's a shared human response. Both the kid and the parent were sensitive to the same environmental cues, like wind, car noises, or shadows, which made them feel the same thing at the same time. But here's the part that's hard to explain logically. Both people felt the exact same thing simultaneously, and neither acted on it until later. That's not easy to chalk up to coincidence. And of course, there's the paranormal theory. Maybe something really was in the back seat, some kind of presence or entity that they both sensed. Either way, it's one of those stories that sticks with you forever. And honestly, I don't blame them. That's the kind of feeling you never forget.
All right, now things are about to get really unsettling. This next story is from an adult who's mentally stable, not sleep-deprived, and has never experienced anything like this before. And yet, what they saw completely terrified them. Honestly, this one gave me chills just reading it.
This is a true story. I'm an adult, mentally stable, and I've never had anything like this happen before. This was not caused by stress, trauma, drugs, alcohol, or exhaustion. I don't suffer from anxiety or panic disorders. I have experienced sleep paralysis once or twice in my life, and this was nothing like that. I was fully awake and completely conscious. I woke up in the middle of the night with my heart pounding like I was in real physical danger. The fear was instant. I heard a floor squeak, and that sound is what woke me. My entire body went into fight mode. I felt the urge to stand up and fight immediately. My senses were tingling. My mind felt razor sharp, and I had that intense adrenaline rush that makes you incredibly focused, like the moment right before a fight. We have a large mirror on our wardrobe, and when I woke, my head was tilted toward it. In the reflection, I saw something standing over my baby's bed, just watching. I did not feel paralyzed. I chose not to move for about 10 seconds because I was trying to understand what I was seeing and decide what to do. During that time, it had the faintest resemblance to my wife, but I knew it wasn't her. Something about it felt deeply wrong. The moment I made the decision to move, it was as if it realized that I was awake, and it vanished instantly. I lifted my head and looked directly. My wife was asleep next to me in bed. She had never left the bed. What I saw was not her, and I am absolutely certain that I was not dreaming. I've never felt fear like that in my life. Not stress, not panic. This was raw, instinctive terror. What makes it even worse is that it happened right next to my child. I don't know what this was. I'm open to scientific explanations, but whatever it was, it felt 100% real in every possible way. Has anyone experienced something like this? Edit/update. I want to add something that happened tonight because it honestly made this whole situation even more unsettling. Our baby has a very strict sleep schedule. She's 1 year old and has never randomly woken up crying unless she was hungry. Since she was born, her sleep pattern has been extremely consistent. Tonight, my wife and I were both in the office. I was working and she was keeping me company. We put the baby to sleep as usual at 2100. Everything was completely normal. Then, at around 2200, she suddenly woke up crying in her room. This has never happened before without a clear reason. We went in and managed to put her back to sleep with milk. Then again, at around 2300, she woke up crying very hard. We rushed into the room. This time she didn't want food, water, or anything else. She was clearly distressed and would not calm down. She only wanted to be held. She continued crying until we physically took her out of the room. At around 1 o'clock, we finally managed to put her to sleep again, but this time I stayed in the room and slept next to her. After that, she slept peacefully until morning and didn't wake up again. This behavior is completely out of character for her, and it happened the night after what I described in my original post. I'm not jumping to conclusions, but I can't ignore the timing either. I will keep you posted and add updates if something more happens. Also, I can't cover the mirrors like many comments said because I have a wall that is gain 5-meter wall mirror.
Okay, let's break this one down. First, maybe it was a reflection trick or lighting anomaly. Mirrors can play tricks. Shadows can look like figures, and at night, your eyes can exaggerate shapes. Second, it could be psychological. Extreme fear or parental instinct can make you see something that isn't really there, especially when you're focused on your baby's crib. Stress, sleep disruption, or adrenaline can heighten perception. Third, there's the baby's reaction. Infants can sense subtle changes in energy or sound that adults don't notice. Maybe there was some environmental factor they weren't aware of that triggered her waking and crying. And finally, there's the paranormal explanation. A conscious, fully awake adult sees a figure over their child's crib, it disappears instantly, and then the baby behaves unusually afterward. That's exactly the type of event people report when they talk about presences or spirits. Honestly, I don't know what it was. Reading this, I can totally imagine how terrifying it must have felt. If that happened to me, I'd probably never sleep without checking the crib and mirror every 5 minutes.
All right, for the final story, this one is wild. It's about something that happened to a couple in Bangalore, India, back in 1995. Both of them were skeptics, and even their friends who moved in afterward had first-hand experiences. Honestly, this one is just straight up eerie.
I'm a longtime lurker here and thought I would share something that happened to my parents about 30 years ago. I'm a huge fan of paranormal stories. I love trying to rack my brain for explanations. But this story has always stumped me, my parents, both skeptics, and anyone they've shared it with. So I'd love to hear if anyone else has experienced anything like this or has a reasonable explanation for it. In 1995, my parents lived in Bangalore, India, for about a year due to a contract job my dad had found there. It was meant to be a temporary dig, so when his office offered them a duplex apartment to rent, they gladly took it. It came with the usual perks of upper-middle-class India, i.e., a couple of bustling maids that took care of the cleaning, groceries, and most of the cooking. Life was bliss for them, a childless, almost newly married couple with basically everything taken care of. At the time, my mom wasn't working, so she stayed at home while my dad went to work. On their floor, there was another apartment with an older woman living in it, who she politely said hello to a few times, but she always looked at my mom a bit strangely, and that made her a bit uncomfortable. On their third or fourth interaction, the older woman asked her, "Are you okay living in that flat?" To which my mom had probably nodded, and she asked her again, "Do you not sense anything?" Which was a confusing question to my mom, but the woman didn't explain further. Eventually, she started telling Mom to not stay there by herself whenever she ran into her, and my mom thought maybe she was just a bit confused and paranoid, maybe due to her age. On some random, sunny and cool morning at around 8 a.m., everything was normal. One of the maids had just mopped the floor, my mom and paternal grandmother, who was visiting them briefly, were in the kitchen, and my dad was in the living room on one of the armchairs reading the newspaper. The setup was such that there were 2 armchairs with a small table in the middle for the landline phone and a large balcony with sliding doors to the left if you were sitting on one of the chairs. The phone rang. My mom picked it up, and it was a relative calling them to break the news that my maternal great-grandmother had passed away. She was over 90 and had passed due to natural causes. My mom was very close to her grandmother, so she was naturally quite upset. She then handed the receiver to my dad to also speak to whoever was calling them. When he stretched his arm to take it, a big drop of something that looked like blood fell on the floor. Then another smaller drop fell after that, then another one, and another one, until it finally stopped near the sliding doors, skipping my dad's feet. They describe it as the kind of blood you'd see if you cut your wrist open. After speaking and hanging up the phone, both of them stared at each other in absolute confusion. The maid had just cleaned the floors. Neither of them were cut anywhere. The ceiling had no leaks. Then what just happened? Even though they were skeptics, they could not find a single reasonable explanation to what that was. The maid, who was still around, refused to go anywhere near it, so it stayed. Eventually, the blood dried up and turned brownish and powdery. With time, they had to stop dwelling on whatever that was, and their lives went back to normal. My mum, a little confused and concerned, took the old woman's advice and would now spend her afternoons at a nearby library. My dad would meet her there on the way back from work, and then they'd come home together. Months passed, and this incident had been pushed aside almost entirely. It was their last night in that house. The following morning, they would catch an early flight and leave Bangalore for good. They were both in their bedroom, packing and organizing for the trip. My mom accidentally dropped something on the ground, and when she went to pick it up, it was action replay. The exact same thing happened again. One big drop followed by smaller drops, skipping her hand. This time, it freaked them out to the point of them considering a hotel for the few hours they had left in that house. They left Bangalore without any explanation for it. The next young couple that was scheduled to move in there were also friends of my parents, contracted by the same company. They were even bigger skeptics and paid no heed to anything my parents told them, so they moved in. On some night, the wife woke up thirsty in the middle of the night and walked downstairs to the kitchen to get some water. When she was on her way back up the stairs, the same thing happened. With every step she took, a drop of blood fell next to her foot, and then another, and another. It scared her tremendously, and she had an epileptic seizure and fell. The sound woke her husband up, and he came running and helped her back to bed. She was eventually fine. In the morning, however, the husband was convinced that it was some kind of practical joke. He scraped up the blood, now dried, using some stiff cardboard, and put it in a tiny bottle to get it tested at a lab on the way to work. When he stepped out of the building, he hailed an auto rickshaw, or auto for short, three-wheeler, also called a tuk-tuk elsewhere, and got in. The second he got in, the driver somehow lost all control. The auto spun 360 degrees, fling him and his office bag out. The driver was fine, but the husband had a broken arm, and the tiny bottle couldn't be found anywhere, even though it was in a deep pocket in his zipped office bag. There are a few smaller instances from this apartment, but this is quite long already, so I'll close it here. Lastly, the apartment still exists, and we've passed by it several times during our trips to Bangalore.
Okay, let's break this down. First, maybe it was some environmental or chemical cause. Maybe a red powder, a leak somewhere, or something from the building structure. But the fact that it happened repeatedly and even affected the next tenants makes this harder to explain. Second, maybe it was psychological. Shock, grief, or expectation can make people perceive strange things. But again, multiple people across months saw the same thing. Third, there's paranormal possibilities. Residual energy, a haunting, or some type of presence attached to the apartment that manifested physically as blood. the way it interacted with different people makes it feel like more than coincidence. Honestly, I don't know what to think. If that happened to me, I would never set foot in that apartment alone. It's the kind of story that just sticks with you forever.